lose him already? I give him this few minutes. Right? All right. Then I would like to invite a few of you to just share very quickly while panelists maybe will prepare themselves. I would like to request Louise from Oxford Research to come maybe here, maybe you can sit there, up to you. Pia, I requested you also to have few words of reflection about the conference. And Cindy, I also requested you, thank you so much. And Stephen Krushan, thank you so much for your also willingness to speak. And I would like to invite also Ms. Jonas as one of the organizers or the organizer of this event as well, but also somebody who's working in this field for a long time too. So while panelists are thinking around two questions, we're going to announce now. I will then ask very quickly for those who are not going to speak and they're part of panel, to share your opinion about the conference very quickly in a few words as a reflective point. So the questions to the panelists. What are the key messages and ideas that you could draw from the presentations and discussion in the groups of this conference? So what are the key messages and ideas you could draw on the topic of informal language learning and media for migrants? And you can specify the region where in the Nordics, but also beyond, because we have speakers beyond Nordics here. The second question to these panels is how do these ideas enrich the work that you are doing, or whether in the organization or as providers, or the researchers from academia, or teachers working as teachers, or anyone, including yourself as language learner, if you want to. Okay, so these are two questions for the panelists to think. Key messages, ideas, and how these ideas are going to enrich your work wherever you work. Yeah. All right. Now I would like to get back to the audience who have been who had very small short period of time to quickly discuss about key points that you have drawn so far from the presentations and discussions this morning. Right. I'll look for volunteers first. If I don't find anyone, then I'll start giving the mic, not voluntarily. Yeah. Anyone?
So
yeah.
The two things I'm thinking about now is first what we were talking about qualifications, which can make your language will make your language more advanced, and I think that's where many of my students stagnate on a kind of simple language level, but it's not so easy to teach that. But I'm taking that with me as an important thing to work on. And the second thing is for my group of students who have a very low level of education, they are literate, but not so very, how to find graded stories that would suit their level and be interesting to them. We don't have, which should also be oral and not written. We don't have so much of that around. So, but I think that's something I really want to explore. So thank you, Stephen Krushan, for emphasizing that. But it must be targeted to different groups who don't always read.
Thank you. Anyone? Anyone? No? Yeah.
Don't be shy.
Yeah. Even a few words.
Well, one thing is that very concrete. I'm coming home and I'll ask my daughter who's 12 years old to keep going with Oslo. Because I have she should be much better in Spanish than she is. Well, that was quite personal, but the other side is the working, how to learn, the importance of the employers when somebody is learning a language at the workplace, that it's a two-way two directions way. It's very important that everybody is aware of and be open and flexible.
Okay, thank you. Anyone from here? Because we are going to talk at the panels. Would you like to say a few words? No? Okay.
I think I've said enough. So.
No? All right. Anyone there? No? Okay. Anyone? No? All right. I would like to also find out whether there's any participant online who would like to say a few words other than Stephen, because Stephen will be a panelist. And you can raise your hand. It's very difficult to actually manage the audiences online as offline. It's quite difficult. I don't see any.
Go back here.
I don't see here. So in order to save time, maybe I can move on. That's for those who are online, but I didn't forget you. If you want, you can come raise your hand or write on the chat. Okay, thank you so much for those of you who shared the ideas. And I think our panelists have some responses to the two questions I have given right before their before our conversation with you. So may I request any of my panelists, whether online or offline here, to share their key messages and ideas that you have drawn out of the presentation discussion that happened today, or during the first conference. We have those who are participating in both conferences. And the second one is what kind of, how these ideas are going to enrich your work, whether you are a researcher, you are a provider, you are civil society, government, or the teacher, or learner yourself. So who would like to go first? I would like to really exercise democracy today.
Is it still okay with the microphone, or we'll shout to the ceiling again?
Do both.
Okay. So I want to also take this opportunity to thank you all for having me. It's been so interesting to learn from all of you. That was something that was really appealing to me when I was deciding to come here today. And so some of the messages that I'm leaving the workshop today with is the value of giving learners more agency in their learning. And so some of the places where we heard that today was most recently from Dr. Krashen, thinking about choosing learning materials or your reading materials. In breakout group 3, we talked about learners reporting on their communities as like citizen journalists. And also there was a talk on translanguaging in the classrooms, so getting learners involved in their own learning in ways that didn't always happen maybe in traditional classrooms. Something else that I will remember is that there's so much innovation happening in digital media and tool development. There's so much power in these tools. And so we saw such a variety of innovations from, I remember especially the Språkkraft root player, right, when we were learning Icelandic earlier. The YouTube series that we also learned about in the third group. And again, some novel teaching methods. But my last conclusion that I'll share is there's a real challenge in connecting those learners with the tools. And so we heard about challenges related to like government and policy in Louise's talk. There's of course financial constraints that affect both the tool development and the learners. And there are just all kinds of problems finding the right tools for such diverse populations, right? We talked about literate versus illiterate migrants, people in different situations, different language backgrounds. So there's still a lot of challenges to overcome, but there's so much potential on both sides, the learner side and the tool development side. And I will be brief, I promise. The last part of my answer about how I will take what I will do with this information is thinking about from an industry perspective and Now I can see myself as. Thinking about an industry perspective and what I do with this information is that I think it's really important to keep developing wider varieties of tools to give learners, again, more opportunity to use what's necessary for their situation and their context for their needs. And we have a saying at Duolingo that I think is really fitting. I find it inspirational anyway, but I think it really fits this context. And that is, we always tell ourselves that we haven't won yet. You know, even if we have a successful project or something goes well, that's not the end. That's not the end of that product's development. That's not, don't pat yourself on the back too quickly. We're not finished. And so I think that kind of marries what I observed today between so much potential, but we've still got some ways to go. And I hope there'll be collaborations after this.
Thank you so much, Cindy. It's actually ties very well with some of the points I'm going to raise as some way forward action points. Yeah. Anyone?
Yeah. Rakhat, you may want to include this comment from the floor, just to read it. This is from the.
Yeah, I'm not wearing my.
Okay, so I was just looking at, you know, there were comments from the online participation, and one was, there has been so much good information and food for thought that I at least am speechless at this point.
Thank you so much, Hannah. I think it's very, very good point. I wanted to also highlight, because I was saying that my brain is going to explode the diversity of speakers, disciplines, and issues that we are raising today. So we'll go back to the panelists. Anyone here? Key messages I draw from today. Well, first of all, I think as a researcher, I have to listen more to the learners. That is what I'm focusing on right now, and I think that today gives me even more conviction that the importance of actually listening to the learners themselves or the users, you know, of the materials, and just as like you said, the power of agency. So critical, I think, with especially with immigrants. And I really love the quote that we had on a slide by Flavio, language learning on steroids. He said something like that from your presentation. And I think that's very true. I think that is something I've seen myself in my own research on extramural English. And how does this enrich my own work? Well, I think the whole thing of informal language learning, it has taken quite some time in academia to get researchers and scholars to pay attention to the variable, if you know, the fact that this is going on. I've been working on it, and others, of course, as well. But I think it's very, very important as a researcher that I keep on stressing. We need to consider this. I mean, we cannot publish and talk about language learning disregarding what's going on outside of educational institutions, because there is so much going on, and some people just sort of ignore that in academia, and that's a problem, I think. And I'm really, really frustrated what I've learned today, that we're two, as far as I understand, successful countries in the Nordics, Finland and Iceland, with Yle and Ruth. They agree to using this app, but apparently in Sweden, we might lose it, and also there are problems in Norway and Denmark. And I just don't understand, why can't they just communicate and solve this? Because it would be, I mean, it's clearly a very helpful tool for immigrants. So I'm quite frustrated at that point with those technical aspects. And of course, the power of technology, and how do we, get people to use it? Because it's very helpful for many learners. Well, thank you.
Thank you so much. I think these are points which Jacob was also thinking around along with you as well, in terms of learning across borders. But also it's a good, I think, platform for us to raise the questions that you raised, especially when this information is going to be available, and probably we can communicate to the right people. No, I mean, some of them are contributing to the organization of the conference. It will be good to learn from each other as well.
Okay, Lingvis.
Yes, thank you. I'd also like to thank you for the opportunity to be here today. I was at the conference in May as well, where I learned a lot, and the same today. I'm not an expert on language training. I'm a consultant. I do very different, my work is really mixed. But what I try to focus on, luckily I'm able to focus mostly on, is education and labour market integration in particular. And I think one thing I've really picked up on today is we know so much about what works. We have all these academic studies, it's peer reviewed. We know for a fact that empirically this is what works. And at the same time, why is it so difficult to get politicians to understand how to implement it in practice and to focus on what works? For all different groups, yes, there are some economic priorities, but at the end of the day, long term, everyone agrees that learning and knowing the language of the country that you live and work and are in, that's the most important thing for long-term integration, for becoming socially integrated, to be able to speak to your kids' teachers, to have a long-term employment. So I think that's one of my key takeaways, and also, should we say, a slight frustration. Why can't we move from all this knowledge to actually implementing it? Because I think what we found, at least in our studies, that that's not really happening. In terms of enrichment, of course, so much learning from here that I'll also be taking with me going forward into new projects that might not be very focused on language learning, but more on integration, and that is an issue that the public sector is very focused on right now. So probably I expect that I'll be doing a lot of work on that moving forward. Yeah, I think I'll stop.
Okay. Thank you so much. I think I'll go directly to Ms. Jonas and then bring on Stephen.
Okay, so what are my key takings during this day? Being an organizer, it's hard to focus also on and listening and comprehend all the input. But I think that my key takeaways is that when we talk about migrants here, we're talking about an extremely diverse group of people. What's fortunate though is that that diversity can be matched by the diversity of media. Okay, so we have music, we have computer games, we have audiobooks, we have graded readers, we have novels, there are such a diversity of different media. And I guess it's all about matching the diversity of migrants to this diversity of the media to achieve comprehensible input at the right level in the language development. So those are my key takings, and how am I going to take that into my everyday work at Språkkraft. I think that actually we can do exactly that. We can make a better connection between our users, trying to map where they are and who they are, and then map that to all those media items that we already have. So we can do a better job, because right now we putting more, we don't help users to find all, because we offer so much that it sometimes can be hard to see the woods for all the trees. You can see what I mean. So my taking is that, how we'll employ it is to make a better work of that, I would say.
Thank you so much, Ms. Jonas. I think you already have answers to some of the questions, like identifying the media, the diversity of them to match with their needs, which are also diverse too. But I think there are also many other questions that we have to respond, because when we are learning a language as a migrant in a new context for employment, for social purposes, I think there will be a host of other challenges that come with, especially when adults are learning with other commitments at home, as family and employment and etc. I think some of those media should also consider such points when they are being designed and offered and piloted and tested. Thank you so much. Maybe we can bring on Stephen Krashman if he's there. Stephen, would you please unmute yourself?
Yes, I'm here.
Yeah, thank you so much.
I am here and still awake.
Yeah. Okay, please. Did you hear the question? 2 questions that I have asked.
Well, from the reaction to my presentation as well as here, the questions were surprisingly stimulating. I like them. Good ideas as to what we should do next, etc. The publishers don't really ask us what should happen. They do what they want to do. And this is a nice reversal. These are nice suggestions of what we do next. I would like more comprehensible input in the form of film, in the form of radio programs, in the form of, good shows on disc, etc. These are good places to go. And I'd like to answer the challenge, does this help, say, with sociolinguistic competence? Let's find out. I suspect that it does, but we really don't know. These are, I thank the audience for exposing some areas that need additional work. So thank you for that. Good session.
Thank you so much for being brief. I think we also heard your presentation in terms of importance of input and as well as reading for pleasure. I'm one of those who loves reading fiction in the middle of my work. First of all, it calms me down. I don't have to take any medication to calm me down. So if I have one book, it's good. I read it actually in Russian. It's the second language for me. Kyrgyz, which is my mother tongue, which is Turkic languages, and English. And very recently, I started picking up graded reading, which Stephen has referred to, in French, because I'm taking French classes, and German, which I'm not doing any classes, but learning through Duolingo. So I think all of these points which has been raised today, we have to go back to the title of the conference. The conference is, I'm looking at the correct spelling here, Informal Language Learning in Media for Migrants in the Nordics. And we had very stimulating presentations in May in Copenhagen and today in Oslo. I think we brought, and Ms. Jonas and Henrik, you have done a wonderful job of bringing and identifying diverse speakers from diverse experiences as well, not just researchers, but also industry people, learners, which were important for us to also have in this conferences to hear from them, and also listening to different kind of practices while we were discussing in the breakout sessions. I think these are all a wealth of knowledge that has been actually created because of the platform given as part of the conference that we have had in Oslo and Copenhagen. I'd like to actually maybe to focus on a few things these conferences have highlighted, the first Copenhagen and Oslo. Maybe the thematic connections between the first and conferences are those. Whether we are talking language learning, informal language learning in the workplace, provided by the municipality, civil society or industries, or whether these are migrants, labor migrants, or migrants who are coming for just for employment purposes, or those who are coming to become to join their family members, or those who have experienced certain type of wars or disasters in their life, and they are refugees and asylum seekers. All of these people are actually the users, or those who you are researching about or with, or producing your products for. And whether you're producing for them specifically, or they're getting your services or using your services as part of the larger audience, it's a different story. But we have heard all the questions and the discussions around migrants and how they are learning languages of their communities they have become part of. Whether they are literate in their mother tongue, whether they're illiterate in their mother tongue, all of these conversations that we had as we heard are critical in the design of our services, in the design of questions that we are also researching, but at the same time requiring us to think more collaboratively, cross-disciplinary, and across also sectors, I think. If I go very quickly, I think before that, sorry. So adult learning has distinctive characteristics or distinct characteristics. We have heard already that they are not just sitting and learning a language, they are learning a language for specific purposes as well. Not knowing the language of where you are living or being employed, etc., has a very negative impact, whether they are employment or social integration, I think. And also being able to speak to your own children. It's very simple as that, or family members. Informal language learning can take place in a variety of linguistic social spaces. I think in the first conference, we talked a little bit about the relationship between informal language learning and formal language learning. And we know also from the more educational research, the relationship between formal curriculum and informal curriculum, or hidden curriculum, if not. All of this informal language learning may be even happening after or during your formal language training, during coffee or break. I took language classes, and I loved the one which was during my break. So I'll go and practice a little bit my German, and I will come back and sit in the formal teaching of German language. I think these are opportunities we have seen in the workplaces as well. We talked a lot of methods which are, or a lot of practices that are happening as well. So something to draw upon when we are working as practitioners, but also researchers too. Next slide, please. So all of these components have been somehow addressed in the first and second conference. We have already talked about readiness to learn, motivation to learn. Maybe we also talk a little bit, very little. I think I was hoping maybe to talk a little bit more about neuroscientific also perspectives of language learning, what kind of cognitive processes are happening when we are adults learning a different language than we were exposed to or we acquired as children. Maybe I'll rush to the next one. These are some of the key topics or notes which our team has actually pulled out. Themes in informal language learning, of course, links between formal and informal spaces, media and informal language learning, how they are interrelated or how one impacts the other. Mobile applications, which are very many these days, and we heard several examples during two conferences. And of course, today was also very interesting. In one of the tracks, we talked about language learning in the workplace. Is it hindrance, or is it like really rich, or do we pick up language just because we are in the workspace, or etc. And engagement in language learning, which is actually one of the elements which has been quite highlighted throughout both conferences, was about multilingual approach and how people who are migrants come with a lot of linguistic repertoires already. And I think I like some of the references were given today, for example, for language, for portraits of the learners themselves. And if we did a similar kind of study with the adults who are sitting in the classrooms, I'm sure there will be more languages even to explore and how they use it. And maybe the journey of their languages that they use. I think I remember the first migrant story we heard in the first Copenhagen conference really gave us good journey of language learning of a migrant from his real life. So we go to the next one, maybe. Oh, I'm not going to read all of it. These are notes which we have taken from all the conversations that were happening. We are going to share it with the presentation with you. So I'll leave it. You can skip to the next, please. So I think some of the points which I was kind of reflecting upon were three. Three doesn't mean that these are all. These are just quick summaries about what we have heard. Where the interventions are being planned to support migrant learners in the workplace or in other spaces, consider the diversity of their needs. I think that's what we heard quite a bit. The second point, which we also heard, related to the media, is media for language learning and literacy development include a range of devices and applications, because not one application is going to fix language learning. So we have to have the diversity of it, which Ms. Jonas very nicely referred to. And it can also include traditional and basic media, as TV and radio. We have heard today also in one of the presentations. And we also heard about the relationship between digital media and informal language learning is not straightforward. It's not just you're watching and you're picking up the language, it's more complex than that. And in the context of migration, informal language learning is closely related to social contracts, learning about society, to promote a sense of belonging, psychological well-being, economic and social inclusion, and civic participation. I think one of the critical components, which I think we may not have said in those words, but when we're dealing with the migrant populations and refugee populations, we are also talking about the aspect of our formal language training, maybe non-formal language training, or informal spaces that we're creating for language learning. Should also consider about the socio-emotional part of it. And I think in migrant studies, oftentimes there, and particularly in the educational studies, there's an emphasis on socio-emotional learning, especially when we talk about people with refugee backgrounds, because of the experiences they go through as refugees and migrants who are forced to flee. Next one, please. I don't think I'm going to highlight all of this very quickly. Digital skills is an important component of our skill set, competencies that we have to have. And migrants, it's not it's also a requirement for migrants if they want to participate in the society. But digital devices, we don't know much about. We hear a lot that how migrants and refugees are coming with digital skills, but what kind of digital skills are they? Do they use these digital skills learning, or for educational opportunities, for deployment, or for leisure? I mean, we have to understand about this complexity as well. A higher level of literacy skills, even though we talk a little bit more about the oral competency is critical, yes, but at the same time, the world is actually moving towards the direction where the higher level of literacy is going to be in demand, in higher demand, if you want to be successful in the labor market, for example, in employment and career prospects. Multilingualism is a new reality, not just because somebody is migrating or coming to another country, but it's also because of internet use. I mean, it's people. I was just giving an example of how my 5-year-old nephew in the monolingual context in the mountain village in Kazakhstan is picking up Russian because of YouTube, and TV programs, and he knows the colors in Russian, but he doesn't know in my mother, which is actually his base in that monolingual context. Now you can clearly see it now. Multilingualism is not just happening because of migration, but it's also happening because of the internet use. And that has some kind of question for us to think about the whole informal language learning, phenomenon as it is, without migrants as well. And then mastery of host country language is a priority when it comes to migrants and refugees, because it's actually important for them because they have to survive. And they have to become part of that society which chosen to come and be live in. Okay, next one, please. Well, we actually produced one publication based on the case studies that we had collected from around the world. It was a global call for cases that use technology innovatively to address the needs of literacy and language learning of the migrants, refugees, and the IDPs. IDPs are internally displaced persons. And these are the key statements or key ideas we actually have drawn out of the cases that we analyzed, and some of the literature that actually speaks to the issues of technology use in literacy and education for refugees, migrants, and internally displaced persons. Språkkraft, that's how we know Språkkraft well, because Språkkraft is one of the cases out of 5 from around the world. Maybe I'll go to the next very quickly. Yeah. I would like to highlight 2 points. Next one, please. So we talked today, and I thought we are not addressing too much. That's why I put it on the slides. So we spoke a lot, by the way, today on that. So maybe quickly about self-directed learning. It's a very difficult Greek origin word, I think, and human-centered design when it comes to talk about technology that is actually designed for language and literacy development for informal language learning. So, next one, please. So, as a part of principle of adult education, andragogical principles, we have to think all the time adults are a little bit different when it comes to their learning. They have goals and they have to be motivated. They're not going to spend their time if they don't think, and I think I heard a lot, language learning is going to help them, either with work, with family, or social situation. I think prevalence of technology has actually helped us to create the opportunity for self-learning more than before. I'm not saying that before they didn't learn on their own, they learn, adults learn on their own all the time. Living is learning, actually. We are living, we have to keep learning. In the language acquisition, I think technology really expanded this opportunity for self-directed learning, where the learners themselves decide to use different kind of opportunities for learning and direct their own learning journey, I think. And also, another important thing is that we have to see this pedagogy also help us understand that it's a holistic approach that's required to develop learners' capabilities, because I think formal language training and literacy development courses help to some extent to kind of demystify the languages which they are learning in terms of their structure, very simply grammar, phonetics, etc. But when it comes to continuing that learning, I think it is very much dependent on self-directedness of the learners. Very quick example, again, personally, because I like giving the stories, as Stephen said. My husband is only using Duolingo to learn German and Udemy classes. Unlike me, who goes to language classes, because I am also trained so much school that I can only pick up language by going to classes. You know, we are coming very differently when it comes to our learning histories. He has always been very self-driven learner, while I have depended a lot on others' inputs. You know, not me searching and trying to create opportunities. But I think by looking at most of our examples, I quickly came to realize that he actually developed all the strategies which Kyoto probably would love to have him as a case study, because that self-directedness in him is stronger than in me, because of the culture of learning and education that I come from. So it's always teacher who should be teaching me to learn the language or to learn anything. Okay? Maybe we go to the, so it's important for us to give ownership of the learning path and processes with the learner, I think. It depends also when that learner you think is ready to do it. Some of the language learners may not necessarily come from their school, histories, but they may be very good self-directed learners. It's again, we go back to the diversity of these learners, I think. It's not very hard standard rule, and I don't want to keep to kind of give you impression that there is a portrait of a learner you can use, and that's what that's going to help you to design your teaching methods or etc. Okay, next one. Yeah, I think we heard during the entire conference a lot about authentic text, that we need to make it available. I think I put one component here is that maybe text authentics being available now easily, not on the internet only, easily, may be giving more motivation for the learners to acquire the language. It may be not real, but I think at least I hear now more authentic speech from the native speakers of different dialects and accents and different vocabulary better now than before, because that before the use of internet, I think we had more especially when the mobility was not as as intense as currently is. I think my chances of meeting anyone who is English language native speaker was very minimal. Up in the mountains, I don't think, and Soviet Union, sorry to say. So all of this now gave us opportunity now. Internet gives us this plethora of opportunity, but at the same time, it may also kind of overload the learners. You know, it's not always maybe good have too many options as well, maybe. But again, we go back to the self-directedness and learners' own ability to actually identify the sources and the text and materials for learning and the way they would like to use it, I think. Okay, I think we go to the next one very quickly. And I don't come from technology application development or program writing background, but I think we have heard quite a bit of in both conferences the reference to the importance of centering any kind of technological applications or use of the media for the learners, who these learners are and how to design for them. I think that was critical both in the first conference as well as in today's conference too. And I would like to quickly maybe go to the last slide because, yeah. I discussed very briefly with Misiones and Henrik about, so we have had 2 conferences now and about same topic and had a lot of conversations and discussions and very interesting research and practices. So what do we do? One of the ideas that we discussed earlier, before even our first conference, was about maybe we should identify some of the research studies, some of the practices that have been shared during the conferences in Copenhagen and Oslo, and publish it and make it available for other parts of the world, for other researchers, for other practitioners, especially when the topic itself brought people from different disciplines, which are not easily really, they don't easily speak with each other because they are different disciplines. And then I was very glad to hear what Mario discussed, presented today on the media research, because I think there is a need for collaborative cross-disciplinary research studies that examine issues of informal language learning, literacy development, and media for and with migrant populations in the Nordics and beyond. I think it's critical for us to, I think maybe you will join Marit's social media group and other, maybe you have identified some collaborative research questions while we were listening to other presenters as well. I think it's critical for us to start something around cross-disciplinary research projects within the region of Nordics, but also beyond. because there were presentations beyond Nordics. The last one is that we need to keep strengthening cross-sectoral partnerships, the way we did in both conferences, I think. But also, it is important to include migrant community organizations. And I was so glad to see one of the migrants who told us her story, but her organization saying that it's what we would like to do on the basis of my experience. And there are a lot of diasporic associations, by the way. I am in the diaspora of Kurdish people in Hamburg, in Germany, in Europe, in Canada, because I lived in Canada for 6 years. So we have there really good opportunity to use these platforms to reach out to them, and then also identify the possibilities of collaboration and partnership with them to develop maybe more language opportunities for them as well. Because I think there are opportunities like that, and diasporic groups themselves have their teachers too. Because I always would like to learn German from my purpose teacher, who learned German herself. I know how to excel in German now. I know how several tips. Anyways, what I'm highlighting here is the importance of working with migrant and diasporas in the kind of work that you're doing with in the industry or in the civil society organizations or research institutes. And with that, I would like to stop my short presentation, or I think it was not short. Thank you so much. Maybe for the concluding words, and maybe this you would like to say a few things, but I'd like to thank Språkkraft for a wonderful platform that they have created for all of us. I think thank you so much for Misiones and Henrik, but also the Nordic Council of Ministers for supporting this these events. And we at the UNESCO Institute for Life and Learning, we are very happy to be part of this these events too. And I think that we have drawn a lot of lessons for ourselves when we're working with at the level of global policymaking, because UNESCO is one of the agencies which promotes literacy, which is expanded notion of literacy, that incorporates also literacies in new languages for people like for the populations such as migrants and refugees. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. So I opened this day-to-day the conference, and I will not linger much closing it. It was Rakhat's task to round it off. So I just would like to offer my thank you and thank you from Språkkraft that you joined us. Also thank you to our Zoom community joining us. We had some I think more technical challenges than we had in Copenhagen, but I hope you enjoyed it all. And I remind you again that we recorded all of these presentations, and we will also share the presentations, the slides with you through our from the website where we keep all the presentation. And we will also share the link to that site in the MIL Facebook group for you to go through later. So thank you very much, everybody. And it's been a long day, almost like 2 conference days in one. So let's take this day with us and have a nice trip back home and have a nice evening. Thank you.